stupid black girl." The man sneered in Arabic, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Alyssa froze, champagne dripping down her uniform. The crystal glasses lay shattered at her feet, victims of the prince's deliberately extended foot. His entourage erupted in laughter, the restaurant dimmed to background noise. "She doesn't even realize I tripped her," the prince continued in Arabic, gold-ringed fingers gesturing dismissively. "Americans send their most incompetent to serve royalty." Alyssa's hands shook as she knelt to collect razor-sharp shards, her reflection fragmented across each piece. Dark skin, pressed uniform, eyes blazing with controlled fury. "Look at her." Completely clueless, the prince smirked to his associates. "I could insult her family and she'd still smile for tips." Blood purled on Alyssa's fingertip as she gripped a glass shard too tightly. She raised her eyes directly to the prince's, something dangerous flickering in her gaze. The Azure Lounge crowned the 51st floor of Dubai's Grand Millennium Hotel, a realm of understated opulence where the ultra-wealthy dined beneath hand-blown glass chandeliers. Floor-to ceiling windows frame the city's glittering skyline, each tower competing to touch the clouds. Staff moved with practiced precision across Italian marble floors, their black uniforms a deliberate contrast to the cream and gold decor. Every detail signaled exclusivity. The crystal stemware imported from Vienna, the gold-rimmed plates, the custom chairs upholstered in silk. The maître, Mr. Bashara, patrolled the dining room with the vigilance of a general. His silver-flecked beard and tailored suit projected authority as he ensured each table maintained the required atmosphere of privileged tranquility. "Standards must never slip," he reminded staff during pre-shift meetings. "Our guests pay for perfection." Tonight, the restaurant hummed with the discreet commerce of influence murmured business negotiations. Political connections cemented over vintage wines, marriage arrangements discussed between families. Money was never mentioned directly, yet it underscored every interaction. Regular patrons understood the unwritten rules. No photographs, discreet conversation, and absolute difference from staff. The Azure's reputation rested on its ability to make the powerful feel untouchable. In one corner, tech entrepreneurs shared blueprints for the next digital revolution. In another, European diplomats whispered secrets behind menu covers. Near the piano, fashion royalty critiqued upcoming collections over truffle-infused delicacies. But tonight, all eyes occasionally drifted to the central table, a rounded booth where Prince Khalid bin Tal and his entourage had been seated. Their laughter, a touch too loud for the Azure's refined ambiance, created ripples of subtle disapproval across the restaurant. Alyssa Jordan hadn't planned on working at the Azure. 6 months ago, she'd been researching her doctoral thesis on cultural crossroads, language as power in modern Middle Eastern diplomacy at Columbia University. When her funding was unexpectedly cut, the prestigious waitstaff position at Dubai's most exclusive restaurant had seemed the perfect solution: immersion in the culture she studied while earning enough to continue her research. At 28, Alyssa already spoke 5 languages fluently. Arabic had been her first linguistic love, sparked by childhood neighbors in Brooklyn, a Lebanese family who'd treated her like their own daughter. By 16, she'd mastered modern standard Arabic. During undergrad at Georgetown, she'd refined her skills in 4 major dialects, earning a reputation as a linguistic prodigy. Her professors hadn't understood her decision to pause academic life for service work. "You're wasting your talent," her advisor had warned during their last video call. "With your skills, you could be interpreting for diplomats, not serving them dinner." What they didn't understand was that Alyssa was still researching, observing how language revealed true character when speakers believed themselves unheard. Her notebook filled nightly with observations on how the wealthy and powerful spoke differently when they thought service staff couldn't understand. In her tiny studio apartment 20 minutes from the hotel by metro, Arabic poetry books books lined the walls. Voice memos of dialectical variations played as she slept. Flashcards with obscure cultural references littered her desk. This wasn't just academic pursuit, it was passion. Elisa kept her linguistic abilities secret at work, presenting herself as a typical American expatriate, still struggling with basic Arabic phrases. The deliberate mispronunciations and confused smiles had become a carefully constructed mask. Sometimes you learn more by listening than speaking, her Lebanese neighbor Mrs. Aboud had taught her. When people think you don't understand, they reveal who they truly are. Tonight, as she changed into a fresh uniform after the champagne incident, Elisa wondered how much longer she could maintain the charade. Prince Khalid bin Tal arrived at precisely 8:30 p.m. flanked by 4 associates. His entrance rippled through the azure staff straightening, guests pretending not to notice while watching from peripheral vision. At 35, the prince commanded attention through birthright and bearing. His custom suit, subtle cologne, and meticulously trimmed beard projected calculated sophistication. A master's degree from Oxford added intellectual credibility to his family's billions. American tabloids had once crowned him the Middle East's most eligible royal. Behind the camera, ready smile lay shrewd eyes that categorized everyone as either useful or irrelevant. Mr. Bashara had called an emergency staff meeting just before their arrival. The prince's family owns 3 hotel chains competing with ours, he'd explained, voice tense. Regional expansion plans for our brand depend on tonight's impression. One complaint could cost millions. The prince's companions represented a strategic collection of influence. Adnan Al-Farsi, aging energy magnate whose handshake sealed billion-dollar deals. Twin brothers Zahir and Karim Nassar, technology investors expanding into American markets, and Hassan Katani, the prince's Oxford roommate, now serving as his chief advisor. They settled into the restaurant's premier booth, a curved alcove offering both privacy and visibility. Other diners pretended not to notice while angling for better views. Champagne immediately, Mr. Bashara instructed staff. Krug closed Domsnil 2006. The prince enjoys being acknowledged without being approached directly. The senior servers suddenly discovered urgent tasks elsewhere in the restaurant, leaving Elisa still considered junior despite her exemplary performance assigned to the royal table. "Don't speak unless spoken to," Mr. Bashara whispered as he escorted her toward the booth. "And for God's sake, don't spill anything." Elisa approached the prince's table with practiced poise, balancing the tray of opened Krug with the precision of a tightrope walker. The $4,000 bottle gleamed under recessed lighting as she positioned herself at the correct angle, present but unobtrusive, visible yet invisible. "Good evening, gentlemen," she said in carefully accented English. Welcome to the Azure. May I pour your champagne? And that's Nasir and Seeds." Prince Khalid barely glanced up, flicking his fingers in affirmation without pausing his conversation with Hassan. His signet ring caught the light, an ancient family crest etched in gold. As Elisa filled each flute with practiced efficiency, Adnan Al-Fari studied her name tag. "Lisa," he pronounced slowly. "American." "Yes, sir." She smiled politely, maintaining the expected eye contact duration brief enough to show respect, long enough to demonstrate attention. "How long have you been in Dubai?" He continued, his English crisp from decades of international business. Before she could answer, Prince Khalid interrupted in Arabic. "Why bother asking? These people rotate through like disposable napkins. One black American waitress is the same as the next." Alyssa's hand remained steady as she finished pouring, her expression unchanged despite understanding every syllable. "We'll begin with the caviar selection," Hassan instructed her in English, sliding setting the leather-bound menu aside without opening it, and the chef should prepare his signature lamb. The prince doesn't waste time with menus. Elisa nodded. Excellent choices. Our beluga reserve is particularly exceptional tonight. As she turned to leave, Prince Khaled muttered to his companions in Arabic. At least they trained her to recommend the most expensive items. Perhaps not completely worthless after all, so dini nut. Subtle laughter followed her as she retreated toward the kitchen, her back straight, her steps measured. From across the restaurant, Mr. Bashara watched anxiously, his fingers unconsciously adjusting his already perfect tie. Inside the kitchen's controlled chaos, Alyssa paused, took a single deep breath, then relayed the order to the executive chef with professional detachment, as if she hadn't just been reduced to a profitable commodity in a language she'd studied for 15 years. The caviar service provided the prince's first opportunity for targeted disdain. As Alyssa arranged the mother-of-pearl spoons and crystal bowls with traditional accompaniment, Prince Khaled shifted to Gulf Arabic dialect, presumably adding another layer of privacy. Americans have no understanding of true luxury, he commented to Zahir Nasser while watching Alyssa prepare the service. Look how she handles the caviar-like feeding slop to animals. Not yours in the Mandarin. Alyssa continued her preparations, carefully measuring the perfect portion of the $800 per ounce delicacy. Her hands moved with deliberate grace, having practiced this presentation countless times. The last time I was in New York, the prince continued, sampling the caviar. I witnessed how they treat their own black citizens, and yet they lecture us about equality. Nasser den din Nasser di. The men nodded in agreement, comfortable in their assumed linguistic privacy. This one is probably working here because nowhere in America would hire her, Kareem added, eyes flicking over Alyssa's form as she arranged delicate blini on the plate. Though I suppose she has certain physical attributes that must help. Nenin dandakinen insartnen sinen de. A fresh wave of laughter rippled through the group. Hassan, the advisor, contributed, "My cousin manages a hotel in London. Says, American staff are the worst, especially the minorities. No respect for hierarchy. Alyssa's expression remained neutral, focused on the perfect presentation. Inside, her mind cataloged each comment with academic precision, noting dialectical variations, cultural prejudices, and status signaling behaviors. This was research material no textbook could provide out there, girl. Prince Khaled switched to English, snapping his fingers. This champagne is getting warm. Bring fresh bottles immediately. Of course, sir. Right away. Alyssa's American accent was flawless, her subservience apparent. As she walked away, the prince reverted to Arabic. Watch how long it takes. I bet she gets confused and brings the wrong vintage. Adnan, the oldest of the group, seemed less comfortable with the targeted mockery. The service here is generally excellent, he noted, dabbing his lips with a linen napkin. Excellence is relative, the prince replied. When standards are low enough, mediocrity appears exceptional. From the service station, Alyssa monitored their champagne levels while arranging the replacement bottle in an ice bucket. Mr. Bashara appeared at her side, anxiety evident in his lowered voice. Is everything satisfactory? The prince's satisfaction is absolutely critical. They seem to be enjoying themselves, Alyssa answered diplomatically. Good, good. He adjusted his cuffs nervously. Remember, the Azure's reputation rests on tonight's service. What neither of them said aloud was that Alyssa's job likely depended on it too. The lamb arrived pink-scented and fragrant with za'atar and sumac, a masterpiece of modern Middle Eastern cuisine. Alyssa presented each plate with sommelier-paired wines, describing the dishes in carefully simplified English. Lamb with herbs and special sauce, she explained, deliberately understating the complex preparation. Prince Khaled smirked at his companions. Netendi di kapten standa. How would you say this in Arabic? He asked Alyssa in English, his tone suggesting a trap. I'm sorry, sir. I only know simple Arabic words, she replied with practiced hesitation. Shukran, maraba, the basics. Nisten krangar atiu dirin. The prince turned to his associates, switching to Arabic. As expected, they send us cultural ignorance on legs. This dish is lamdan biza taramak, prepared in the traditional method of my grandmother's region, and she reduces it to lamb with herbs. Perhaps we should teach her, Hassan suggested with mock generosity, then addressed Alisa in English. Say lamdan. Lamdan, Alisa repeated, intentionally flattening the guttural consonants. The table erupted in laughter at her manufactured mispronunciation. Again, Prince Khalid commanded, phone now recording. Say Zahatar. Zatar. She stumbled deliberately, watching his phone capture her orchestrated humiliation. This will be amusing to share, he commented in Arabic. American cultural imperialism personified. They expect the world to speak English while remaining willfully ignorant themselves. The wine pairing provided fresh ammunition. When Alyssa described the sir's flavor profile, Prince Khalid interrupted. You're pronouncing it incorrectly, he stated coldly in English. It's not Shiraz, as Americans say. Show some respect for French tradition. I apologize, sir, Alyssa responded, though her pronunciation had been perfect. The prince's behavior emboldened his companions. They began making special requests, dishes modified beyond recognition, wine temperatures precisely specified, seating arrangements adjusted repeatedly, each command delivered with the expectation of failure. With each return to the table, Alisa felt the microscope intensify. Mr. Bashara hovered nearby, his anxiety palpable as he witnessed the escalating demands. Whatever they want, he whispered urgently when she passed. The hotel director is now monitoring the situation personally. The kitchen's controlled chaos had transformed to tense precision. Executive chef Renaud, whose 3 Michelin stars usually guarantee difference, now personally inspected each dish destined for the prince's table. Everything must be beyond perfect, he instructed, flame briefly illuminating his face as he caramelized the dessert's sugar crust. The hotel director called down. This table has corporate implications. Alyssa entered through the swinging doors, shoulders squared despite the mounting pressure. Behind her professional composure, fatigue pulled at her muscles. The prince's table had now consumed 2 hours of increasingly elaborate service. They've requested the black truffle soul, she informed the pastry station. But Prince Khalid wants it less airy than usual because Americans overcook them. Chef Renaud's knuckles whitened around his ladle. The soul is perfectly balanced. It cannot be less airy and remain a soul. I understand, Alyssa replied quietly, but they're insistent. From across the kitchen, Marcus, a server with 3 years seniority, watched the exchange. I requested a section change when I saw them seated in mine, he admitted to Alyssa as she collected warm towels. Prince Khalid made my cousin cry when she served him in London. He's notorious. Most of the waitstaff suddenly needed breaks when they arrived, agreed Sophia, arranging petite fours. You're handling it remarkably well. The kitchen's solidarity provided momentary comfort. Even Chef Renaud, after his initial resistance, placed a perfected truffle soul on her tray. You have dignity, Alisa, he said, uncharacteristically gentle. Some guests try to take that from staff. Don't let them. Mr. Bashara pushed through the door, tension visible in his jaw. The Nassars are asking for you specifically now. Apparently, the prince finds your service entertaining. The kitchen fell silent, staff exchanging knowing glances. We've all experienced tables like this, Sophia whispered, adjusting the towels on Alyssa's tray. But you're stronger than most. As Alyssa prepared to return to the dining room, Chef Renaud added a small, exquisite chocolate chocolate not ordered, not on the menu, to her tray. A reminder, he said quietly. We see your worth, even when guests do not. 3 hours into service, the prince's table had consumed 4 bottles of reserve wine, sent back 2 perfectly prepared dishes, and created an invisible force field that other diners carefully navigated around. Their laughter had grown progressively louder, their demands increasingly arbitrary. Alisa approached with coffee service, single-origin Ethiopian beans prepared tableside in traditional Jabina pots, her movements precise despite mounting exhaustion. Your coffee, gentlemen, she announced, arranging the ornate copper vessels. Prince Khaled glanced at the presentation, then deliberately shifted his elbow. The movement sent his water glass toppling, liquid cascading across the table and onto his lap. His reaction was immediate and theatrical. What incompetence! He shouted in English, loud enough for nearby tables to turn. You've ruined my suit! Alisa stepped back, apologizing professionally despite having been nowhere near the glass when it fell. I'm terribly sorry, sir. Let me bring towels immediately. The restaurant froze. Mr. Bashara materialized instantly, profuse apologies flowing as he signaled frantically for assistance. As staff rushed to address the manufactured crisis, Prince Khaled switched to Arabic, voice lowered but perfectly audible to Alisa. This is what happens when you hire people based on diversity quotas rather than competence, he told his companions, dabbing at barely damp trousers. An educated person, someone with actual intelligence, would never make such mistakes. His associates nodded in practiced agreement. Americans export their failed social experiments everywhere, he continued, hiring unqualified minorities, then wondering why service suffers. Adnan, who had remained mostly silent during the escalating behavior, frowned slightly. Perhaps it was an accident. These things happen. No, Prince Khalid responded sharply. Incompetence happens when you place people in positions beyond their intellectual capacity. This girl probably struggles to follow basic instructions in her native language, let alone understand proper service. The words hung in the air as Alisa returned with linen towels. She placed them on the table with steady hands, though something had shifted in her demeanor, a barely perceptible straightening of her spine. A momentary pause in her automatic difference. Will there be anything else, sir? She asked, her voice controlled. The prince's cold smile suggested he sensed the change. We'll see. A heavy silence descended over the table as Alisa carefully blotted the remaining moisture. The other servers had retreated, leaving her alone at the epicenter of tension. 20 feet away, Mr. Bashara hovered anxiously, phone pressed to his ear, undoubtedly briefing hotel management about the incident. Prince Khalid leaned back, examining Alisa with the detached curiosity of someone studying an insect under glass. His companions watched expectantly, attuned to his mood shifts from years of proximity to power. Tell me, he said in English, voice pitched to carry to nearby tables, do they really let anyone become a server in America these days? No standards at all. The question hung in the air, a public challenge designed to humiliate. Other diners glanced over, then quickly away, unwilling to witness someone else's degradation. In that crystallized moment, something shifted behind Alisa's eyes. 15 years of language study, a doctoral thesis nearly complete. Research that could transform understanding of cultural diplomacy. And here she was being deliberately diminished by a man who assumed her silence meant ignorance. Mrs. Abu's voice echoed in her memory. Your knowledge is armor they cannot penetrate. Your education is power they cannot take. Alisa completed drying the table, movements unhurried yet precise. She gathered the damp linens, folded them with methodical care. When she finally straightened, her posture had subtly transformed. No longer the differential server, but a woman standing her full height. Would you prefer I bring the dessert menu now? The sand is ein som. she asked in English, her tone professionally neutral. Or perhaps I could suggest the chef's special baklava with Tahitian vanilla bean ice cream. It's particularly excellent tonight. The prince scoffed, turning to his companions. He switched to classical Arabic, the formal dialect of literature and academia. Why bother with suggestions? Her kind can barely comprehend simple concepts, let alone appreciate the subtleties of fine dining. Intellectual limitations are written into their very essence. Elisa took a measured breath, squared her shoulders, and made her decision. In fact, Your Highness, Elisa responded in flawless classical Arabic, her pronunciation refined by years of devoted study. The baklava incorporates a rosewater syrup technique from your grandmother's native region. A subtle nod to traditional Najdi preparation methods rarely found outside Saudi Arabia. The transformation at the table was immediate and absolute. Hassan froze with his coffee cup suspended mid-air. The Nassar brothers exchanged stunned glances. Adnan's eyebrows rose in undisguised surprise. Prince Khalid's expression shifted from shock to disbelief to carefully controlled anger, all within seconds. "You speak Arabic," he stated flatly, switching to English as if to re-establish control. Elisa continued in classical Arabic, her vocabulary sophisticated and precise. "I do, Your Highness. I'm completing my doctoral research at Columbia University on dialectical variations across the Arabian Peninsula and their impact on diplomatic communications. My focus includes the historical evolution of status indicators in language from pre-Islamic poetry through contemporary business negotiations."